A function is a relationship between an input and an output. You can think of functions as a machine that takes in an input and it spits out an output. Like in this equation, we have y equals to x plus 3. Here, x will be our input. So we'll put something in place of x. Then y will be our output. That's what we'll get after we solve the equation. And usually we can write it as y is equal to fx, where fx is the function. You can usually write it as y is equals to f of x. It could be anything like h of x, g of t, where that x is the input. That's where we'll put the values given to us, and y will be our output. That's the only thing that's important here. Put an input and we get an output. So here we have an equation, y is equals to 2x plus 4. So if you want to solve it and get a result, we'll put something in place of x. Suppose we'll put 3. Then we'll get something like this. And if we solve it further, so y is equals to 6 plus 4, y is equals to 10. That's what we get after we put an input into this function. And the input that we give to a function, that is our domain. And the result that we get in return, that is our range. So the values of x that we give to a function, that's the domain, and the values of y that we get in return is the range. But there's an important rule that you need to remember, that for instance, you have this function y is equals to f of x. So if you solve it for a value of x, that value of x cannot give you two different numbers. So the result that you get, if you put 2 in place of x, you get the number 6. And if you again put number 2 in place of x, you cannot get 4. You need to get the same result if your input is same. Like if your number is 2 and you get y is equals to 6, if you put number 4 and y is equals to 6, that makes sense. But same input cannot give two different answers. That's the key. Now we have an equation like y is equals to x squared plus 2. So if we take multiple values of x and we put them in place of x, and then we'll make a table from them, like I put 1 instead of x, then we'll get y is equals to 2. X is equals to 2, then we'll solve it and we'll get 5. Then we'll put 3 in place of x. Then y is equals to 3 square plus 1, which is 10. Like that, we can put any value that we want and we'll get a y in return. Then we can use these values to construct a graph like we make a normal graph, right? You plot the x values on one side and the y values on one side, and you'll have your graph. But suppose you already have a graph. So how do you check if that graph is of a function or not? To do that, we have a test called the vertical line test. So we have multiple graphs over here. So we'll draw a single vertical line through the graphs. And we need to make sure that the line only passes through the graph once. As you can see in the first two examples, the line only intersects the graph once, but in the third example, it cuts through the graph twice. That we cannot have. So number 3 and number 4 are not functions because the line intersects the graph twice. A line can only intersect the graph once if that graph is of a function. If it does that twice, then no, it's not the graph of a function. Another thing to keep in mind, right? So again, I'll talk a little bit about the domain, range, and codomain of a function. For example, I have all the x values on the left side and the resulting values y on the right. So if you put 1 in that function, we get 1, we put 2, we get 8, we put 3, we get 27, and if we put 4, we get 64. So that is the range of this function for this given inputs. That's the important point, right? All the other values, they're in the codomain. What that means is that they are possibilities. Like you definitely can get 3. If your x is equals to square root of 3, then if you put that value, we'll get 9. So the answer 9 of y is equals to 9 is a possibility here, but it's not in the range because all the inputs that we have right now, they do not give y. But if we choose any other input than these four values, we definitely can get 9. So that's the difference between range and codomain. Codomain consists of all the possible answers, whereas range consists of all the answers that we are getting after putting the given inputs. So degrees of function, it's a very easy topic to do. So the only thing that you need to pay attention to is the power of the given unknown, right? So here we have 4x and the power of x here is 1. So this is a linear function, and if you draw the graph, you can see it grows linearly. Like as the value of x will grow, so will the graph. Next one is quadratic function. It is also very easy to remember. The only thing of importance here is that the x has a power of 2. So means if it is x squared, then it's a quadratic function. And if you want to plot its graph, it will look something like this. It's basically a U. Next one is the cubic function. And these type of functions, what we have, the power of x is raised to 3. So we have cubes, x cube, y cube, z cube. It could be any unknown. The only thing is that it's of power 3. For example, we have 2x cube plus 1, x cube plus 8, 4x cube plus 2x plus 1. The power of 3 makes it a cubic function. If we want to plot its graph, it's somewhat different because it grows differently than the quadratic and linear functions. So this is the graph of cubic function.